Hey everybody, Andy Moore here with People, Not Politicians, and this video is to show you how to use Representable, which is a new online tool for drawing communities of interest and collecting that information from the community across the state so that we can provide it to the state legislature and other groups who are drawing maps for the decennial redistricting that is happening this spring. A community of interest is a geographic region that's filled with people who are connected because they share some sort of cultural, historic, social, economic, or political commonality. These could be things like a neighborhood and its schools that they feed into. It could be historic communities like Deep Deuce in Oklahoma City or Greenwood in Tulsa. It could be a farming community where everyone goes to the same church or shops at the same stores. Lots of ways to define a community of interest. The important reason that we are collecting this is so that those communities can be reflected in the maps that our state legislature draws during redistricting this year. Representable is an online tool that was created by the good people at Princeton University and the Princeton Gerrymandering Project, and they built it with communities in mind and with input and collaboration with organizations like us and many others across the country. We've been honing this tool over the last couple of years. They've got it in a point that's really easy to use, and I'm going to walk you through it and show you an example as I draw my community here, which is a neighborhood with a neighborhood school, and show you how easy it is. I really hope that you will just take a few minutes after this video to draw your community and then to share this link, this tool, with people that you may know so that we can collect information from Oklahomans throughout the state and use that information to draw better maps so we get better government. Okay, let's hop in. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a look at Representable. Okay, so you can see this is it right here, and I first want to highlight at the top the URL that we're using, representable.org/drive/people-not-politicians. I will put this link in the description below this video so you can find it very easily. This is the link you should use so that your information, the maps you draw, will go into our community mapping drive. That way we can collect information from across the state and put it all in one place. So once you're here, you scroll down, you'll see that it does contain our information, stuff about Oklahoma. Click Draw My Community. Now, of course, you've got to sign up over here or log in if you have already created an account, as I have. Next, you got to put in your name and address so they know that you're a real person. And then we get to step 2, which is drawing your community. There's some brief information about what a community of interest is. We've already talked about that. And so we're going to click Start. And then in step 2, the Representable will prompt you to describe your community using text first before we get on to the actual drawing of the map. And you can see they categorize it in terms of economic or environmental interests, and there are some questions to help you think through what that might be, and some examples of different economic or environmental issues. There's also community activities and services, same kinds of questions and suggestions. Cultural or historic interests, any kind of cultural bonds there. If there's a shared history, what is it? And then any needs or concerns you might have. There's some examples. You only have to pick one of these 4 things, and so I'm going to go with community activities and services because I see schools and universities there. I'm going to say my community is the neighborhood adjacent to Cleveland Elementary School in Oklahoma City. There. So something simple in there. You can fill out as much information as you want. All of the data will go along with your file, so it's very helpful. And it's also helpful just to know how people are defining their communities. Once you fill that out, click Next. Give your neighborhood a name. We'll call it Cleveland Venice. And then you click Next. Then you start, now we get on to the actual drawing of maps. You can put in anything. I'm going to put in my zip code because that's a good way to get to where I'm going. And it did not zoom in as much as it normally does. So you kind of zoom into where you're looking. I know where I'm going with this one, and so this is my neighborhood here. This is Cleveland Elementary School, a little green and brown dot there. And I know that this is my community. Now you'll see on the map is covered in black lines. Those lines are the outlines of census blocks. And the census blocks are the smallest unit of measurement we can use for the purposes of drawing these maps. The census blocks were created and drawn by the Census Bureau a few years ago in preparation for them conducting the 2020 census. So we can't adjust where those lines are, but they are very important when it comes to drawing communities of interest and when it comes to drawing, state house districts, state senate districts, congressional districts, county commissioner districts. Everything comes down to this small unit of measurement, which is census blocks. So as I move my mouse around, you'll notice that the block that I'm hovering over becomes dark, so it's easier to see. That's very helpful. And really, to draw it, all you have to do is click it. And once you click it, it turns blue. You can click those two. And so I'll pick those. I will note up here in the top right-hand corner of your screen is a little gear for the settings. And so let's say you want to erase something. You can choose eraser. You can go back and click it off, and it would erase it. You can also change the size of your selection tool. So instead of the smallest tool is one census block at a time, if you make it bigger, it will select multiple census blocks at once. So if you are mapping an area that's a little bit larger, that's a very handy tool, particularly if you are zoomed out more on the screen. So I'm going to go back and click this again. Now that I've picked these two as my community, something else to point out about the census blocks is that, just because you might identify a neighborhood looks a certain way, that may not align with how census blocks exist. And so when drawing a community, you have to kind of approximate as best you can. For example, here in my neighborhood, Cleveland neighborhood really goes up to Northwest 30th Street here. It's this, just this block. And so, but this census block extends a little bit beyond that up to 31st Street. And so that's really into the Venice neighborhood. Now I might even consider adding this top one here, which has, a few more streets and isn't exactly, as compact as I view it personally. But again, part of the beauty of crowdsourcing and all of us sharing and drawing of these communities of interest is that we may have different interpretations and slightly different views on it. And by putting all of it together, we can see where the overlap exists and try to get that core area. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's these three census blocks. Some of my neighbors might disagree, and I hope that they will join in and draw the maps how they see fit as well. Now, arguably, this small community fits into a larger community. I could come back and, I can make an argument in a different, maybe a different map that say that, I also want to include the Denison Park area over here, part of the Shepherd neighborhood here. You can go around a lot more. But for the purposes of this map, I'm just going to stick to this part right here. Okay, once you're done, click Save, confirm your name and address, agree to the terms and conditions, and then promise you're not a robot. Select images with taxis. Who doesn't love a good CAPTCHA? All right, I'm not a robot. Submit, it saves, and then poof, congratulations, you've made an impact. You can click one of these buttons to export your map if you want to. Maybe you want to print it out and send it to your state legislator. That's a good idea. But also everything will be saved into our drive. And so there's another place here, these buttons you can export right there. If you're interested, you can also click at the top and view data layers. And they put these at the end because I think that's interesting. So let's say we want to overlay the boundaries of state house districts. Click that on and you can see right away that in fact there's a line, a state house district border that goes right through the middle of what I would define as my community, that we are divided between House District 88 and I believe this is House District 89 up here. Likewise, state Senate districts go the same way, right? So this is Senate District 30 down here, and I think this is Senate District 40 at the top, but you can see it's divided right through the middle. And if you draw them both, you can see that this part of Senate District 40 is in one House district, and it's all kind of fascinating. If you want to zoom out more, you can lay over the map of all the House districts there, in case you're interested in that kind of thing. You can also do zip codes, which I didn't even know what my zip code boundaries were, but there we go. Census block groups, which we were already looking at. School districts, those kinds of things. Lots of different borders and boundaries to be considered when doing redistricting. And a school district, that is arguably one border right there that could be a community of interest, right? Particularly, let's look out here to the west. Bethany is a very small school district that is smaller even than the city of Bethany. And I know, anyone who lives in Oklahoma City knows the Bethany School District is 100% a community of interest. People really stake that out and are pretty, have a firm identity about that. I say that with having lived there 10 years myself, and my sister's kids are in the Bethany district. You can also view the population demographics for the community that you drew. So I can see in this little community I drew, the population as of the most recent data was 2,349 people. Of course, that will be different once we get the 2020 census data. So that's really about it. Once you are done drawing that, up at the top right, you can add another community. If you wanted to go in and draw something else, you can click on your account, view your settings, view however many communities you may have drawn. Learn more about redistricting, all of that. Just want to say, you don't have to just limit yourself to where you live. You are a member of many communities in our state. It could be school districts, it could be a business improvement district, or like a shopping region like the Plaza District in Oklahoma City, Blue Dome District in Tulsa. When you think about how many universities there are across the state, many of those have a bit of a community around them, right? So whether it's OU in Norman or OSU in Stillwater, or it's Northeastern State, or Southwest Oklahoma State University, they all have the university campus, and also the surrounding community often has a slightly different flavor, right, when there's a university there. And so maybe that's a community that you want to draw. All right, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope that this was helpful to you, and I hope that you will, again, click that link in the description now and go out and draw your district. We'll be running this community mapping drive through the months of February and March, at least, collecting data so we can send it and share it with the state legislature with the hope that they use it in drawing their districts. They did a bunch of town hall meetings in December and January where they presented information to the public, and they heard some questions and got a few, tidbits of feedback. They've also received information via email and online forums. And I hope that they are collecting this kind of information. We wanted to help the process, right? This is a really great tool. It's free, it's super easy. It's a great way for us to help participate, and all of us to be involved in sharing information about our communities so that our communities receive better representation. Better maps mean better government, and that's what we are all about. Thanks so much. See you next time.